Hello friends, I am Rahul Saha. I have completed my MTech from VIT University, Vellore in the field of biotechnology, and I've also been a research associate in IIT Chennai. Today I'll be bringing you a very intriguing topic which is known by the name complex one of the electron transport chain. So in the last video, if you have been able to watch it, where I had described to you the electron transport chain pertaining to the specific cycle known as the Q cycle. Now in this specific video, we will be talking about the complex one in great detail. Now in this very specific slide, what you can see is the matrix side of the mitochondrion and the intermembrane side of the mitochondrion as well. Now, what you can see is later on down the line the electron transport chain. Now, electron transport chain is responsible for what all specificities in Homo sapiens or in mammals. So what happens is we are dependent upon food. Why? So that intriguing question is answered by the fact that we are dependent on food for vitamins, minerals, proteins, nucleic acids, fats plus lipids, and carbohydrates. That is the truth. But the thing is, biochemically, as far as the oxidative phosphorylation is concerned, we are dependent upon ATP in order to gain electrons because we don't possess the chlorophylls, we don't possess the chloroplasts, and we cannot harness the E equal to h nu, that is the energy acquired from the sun rays that directly the quantum mechanics, while applying the Fret and quantum mechanics, we cannot harness the specific sunlight in order to generate the starch and sucrose that the plants are able to generate. So we are dependent upon the food. We are heterotrophs, so we are dependent upon the food that the plants are going to give us, that the or even if we feed upon the animals, those food particles or those entities, what they do is they in turn transfer electrons. And there are specific electron acceptors like NAD plus, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, and FAD, that is flavine adenine dinucleotide. Also, there is FMN, flavine mononucleotide. So these specific entities, they are tremendously good at accepting the electrons. They have high electron gain enthalpy. So what they can do is the most prominent of these lot are NADH, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide hydrogen, and FADH2, is flavine adenine dinucleotide dihydrogen. Now these specific molecules are also referred to as being the electron carriers or the reducing equivalents. Now they will do what? They'll cause the traversal of electrons. They'll help in the generation of ubiquinol via the Q cycle, which was explained in the last video, and then they will also help in the generation of the reduced cytochrome C, which will be explained in the later videos. And that will then go and bind to the complex 4, and complex 4 will again, you can say, generate what would cause the traversal of electrons, which was generated in the Q cycle via the reduced cytochrome C, and cytochrome C travels to complex 4, would then cause the traversal of the electron from the cytochrome C ultimately through the cytochrome C oxygen, which is the complex for 2 oxygen, and then producing water in the process, and also pumping 4H plus into the intermembrane space. Therefore, oxygen is the last electron acceptor. This entire transfer of the electron from complex 1 to complex 2 to complex 3 to complex 4, and thereby producing a gradient in the intermembrane space, is known as the electron transport chain, which is again a part of the chemoosmotic or the chemiosmotic theory, which will be described in the later video as well. Now, if we dissect the mitochondria, we observe the mitochondria in grain detail, in prolific detail, then what we are going to find is they have the outer membrane, it has the inner mitochondrial membrane, it has the cristae. Now, in order to acquaint you with the permeability of the various membranes, I would like to tell you that, I would like to inform you that the outer mitochondrial membrane is mostly permeable to all the small ions and proteins. So what happens is it is mostly permeable to pyruvate, NADH, and all those specific entities, but the inner mitochondrial membrane is just the contrast, it's just the opposite of the outer mitochondrial membrane when their permeability is concerned. It is highly impermeable to NADH, even to oxaloacetate, and it is very, very selectively permeable. Even for pyruvate, which is produced after the glycolysis cycle or as the end product of glycolysis, it has to be carried into the inner mitochondrial membrane via the mitochondrial pyruvate carrier, which is an integral membrane protein present on the inner mitochondrial membrane. And all the complexes, complex 1, 2, 3, and 4, are also resident of the inner mitochondrial membrane. They are the integral membrane proteins present on the inner mitochondrial membrane, or you can call them the transmembrane proteins, right? Also, the complex 5, which is known as the ATP synthase, is also an integral part of the inner mitochondrial membrane. The ATP ADP translocases, which will be explained in the later videos, what is their role and how do they act in the perpetuation of phosphorylation of ADP with PI, which is carried on by the F0 F1 complex or ATPase, that is also a resident of the inner mitochondrial membrane. When we come to the matrix does contain various enzymes like the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, which plays a pivotal role in the Krebs cycle while oxidatively decarboxylating the pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A. Also, the other enzymes of the triboxylic or the tricarboxylic acid cycle or the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle, the enzymes pertaining to the beta oxidation of the fatty acid breakdown, and also the oxidation of the amino acids. Also, it contains the circular DNA, the 70s ribosomes, okay, and many soluble metabolite intermediates are also present, are also existent in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Now, if you just generalize the cellular respiration, so glycolysis will be explained in a separate video. The EMP version of the glycolysis generates two ATP molecules and two pyruvate molecules because one glucose molecule is made up of six carbons and each pyruvate or pyruvic acid is made up of three carbon molecules. And the pyruvate, I told you in the past slide as well, that it goes into the inner mitochondrial membrane, it is oxidatively decarboxylated, and then it goes into the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle begins, and the main role, why does the Krebs cycle happen, is the two rounds of Krebs cycle would would produce a total of 6 NADH and 2 fat H2, meaning that they are producing what they are able to synthesize the reducing equivalents. Okay, so when we will be describing the Krebs cycle, then I'll acquaint you with the entire process of how do all of these reducing equivalents get produced, get synthesized. And then eventually these reducing equivalents are the feeders to the respiratory chain or the oxidative phosphorylation, which is also known as the electron transport chain. Okay. Now the components of electron transport chain, the complex one is also known as NADH dehydrogenase, is made up of 46 proteins, and the prosthetic groups are 9 iron sulfur proteins, iron sulfur centers. Then what we have is the flavine mononucleotide, also as the prosthetic group. This complex 2 is the succinate coenzyme Q reductase. So it is the only specific enzyme which also takes part in the Krebs cycle. Okay, when it oxidizes succinate to fumarate and is also an integral part of the electron transport chain. It is made up of 5 proteins and it does contain phosphatic groups like flavine, adenine, dinucleotide, and cytochrome 560, and also it comprises of 3 FeS or iron sulfur centers. Then complex 3 is coenzyme Q cytochrome C reductase. It is made up of 11 proteins. It does contain cytochrome BH, cytochrome BL, okay, and also it contains cytochrome C1 and also the FeS riscase center. So this specific complex 3 and its Q cycle was explained in detail in the last video, so you can check it out, the Q cycle, to comprehend and decipher the specificities of the Q cycle and the complex 3. Now complex 4, it will be explained in the later videos. It's known as cytochrome C oxidase or cytochrome oxidase. Generally, it is made up of 13 proteins and it does contain cytochrome A, A3 and copper A and copper B. Means it contains two binuclear centers that I'll explain to you again in the video where I'll be describing in detail and in-depth analysis will be done of complex 4. Now in this very video we'll be talking in detail about NADH dehydrogenase. We'll be covering it comprehensively. Now complex 1 is also referred to as NADH dehydrogenase. Now dehydrogenases, they fall under the category of enzymes known as oxidoreductases. There are 6 categories of enzymes. Now they can go for either oxidation or reduction. Now we know via simple biochemistry and simple knowledge, the fundamental knowledge of chemistry, that any oxidation reaction is coupled to a reduction reaction. That is why it is known as redox reaction in order to stabilize the lost or gained electrons. Okay. Now complex 1, it catalyzes the oxidation of NADH with reduction of coenzyme Q, meaning that it would reduce coenzyme Q, meaning that the NADH would be transferring its electron to Q in order to convert it from ubiquinone to the reduced form ubiquinol, which we saw the ubiquinol participating in the Q cycle in the last video. So I told you in the last video itself that QH2 is generated as a consequence of the complex 1. Now, in the last slide only I told you that it contains 46 proteins and it also does possess the flavine mononucleotide and you can say various FES centers. So you can look at the last slide again. It contains 9 FES centers. Okay. Now, what it does is it concomitantly pumps 4H plus across the inner mitochondrial membrane, means from the matrix side to the intermembrane space, meaning that it causes the accumulation of the 4 protons. Thereby, what it would do is it is assisting the mitochondria in order to generate the chemiosmotic gradient, the electrochemical gradient via the chemiosmotic theory, because H plus's protons will be pumped, and what would happen is the positivity of the inner mitochondrial membrane across its sides would be altered. How? Because the protons are pumped from the matrix side to the intermembrane space, meaning what? Meaning that after the pumping of the protons, what's happening is the intermembrane space is becoming increasingly positive as the protons are being pumped, and that in turn leads to the matrix becoming more and more negative. So there is more and more charge difference. If we apply the Nernst equation, there will be more and more, you can say, voltage difference as well. And that leads eventually to the electrochemical gradient. Electrical gradient plus the chemical gradient is the concomitant process of generating electrochemical gradient. Electrical gradient means difference in charge. Chemical gradient means if you are throwing out protons H plus into the intermembrane space, meaning that the increase in the protons would eventually lead to a decrease in pH, because pH, as we know, the formula from the fundamental chemistry is pH equal to minus log H plus. Now, the initial electron transfer reactions, what they include is, first of all, the flavine mononucleotide prosthetic group would come into action that has electron gain enthalpy which is more than NADH. Now, NADH would be transferring the electrons to FMN. Okay. Now it will become NAD plus, and then FMN would be reduced to FMNH2, and then this FMNH2 would be transferring its electron to the oxidized FES center. Right. Now the oxidized FES center would then be reduced, and it would lead to generation of FMNH free radical and one proton known as H plus. Now, what happens is FeS is again reoxidized, okay, by the transfer of the electron which is present as a free radical in FMN, you can say H free radical, and then a fresh FeS center would be, you can say, reduced, and then what would happen is FeS is reduced, okay, which is the oxidized FeS. One fresh FeS oxidized state would get reduced, and then this FMN free radical would be converted into simple FMN flavine mononucleotide, and then it would convert it into FeS reduced state, and then one more H plus would be concomitantly released. Now you can see in the diagram which has been given here, if you watch it closely, what you would see is the iron sulfur centers are just arranged like wires, and they provide a specific pathway through which the electron traversal can occur, emanating or initiation of which occurs through the flammine mononucleotide and it goes via various proteins. Okay, now the N2 center that you are able to behold here is the last FES center present in this entire chain and which causes again the traversal of one electron at a time to the coenzyme Q. And in the last video only I told you that coenzyme Q is a very mobile electron carrier because it is lipid soluble. It's a benzoquinone with a long isoprenoid side chain. Okay, so that is the way coenzyme Q works. Now coenzyme Q can in turn accept two electrons which was again described in the last video, and also after it gets two electrons, acquires two electrons and becomes double electron negative, it also acquires two protons from the matrix itself, which we also saw in the Q cycle in the last video, and becomes completely reduced, and then it causes the formation or it gets transformed into ubiquinol. These are the specificities which you needed to learn, which you needed to gain in order to decipher and comprehend this video properly. So thanks a lot. And if you have any questions, any queries, you can post your comments on the comment section below. And I'll be posting the videos of the electron transport chain of complex 2, complex 4, the ATP translocation and translocations in the future as well. So thanks a lot. Have a nice day.